Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Good morning to you, Lori. How are you?
Good morning, Lauren. I just love seeing those little numbers clicking as people join the room. I love the way you say join the room.
Oh,
That's a
yeah.
great expression.
It's like our audience is filling the seats now, right?
I know, it's just so much fun. It's just like clicks one after another, and it's awesome. So I have to make a quick shout out. Thank you to our frequent flyers, as I'm calling them. It's just great to have you. And also thank you to all that have sent emails, made one-on-one sessions with me, sent different questions. We love to hear from you. Every time that Lauren gets a email, then she sends it my way. We love participation. So thanks for engaging with us.
Thank you for that, Lori. Yes, to our frequent flyers, good morning to you. To those of you who are new to the show, good morning to you. Thank you for joining us. You have tuned in to Small Biz Talk, solutions for your small business with the fabulous Lori Williams.
Oh, you're too kind. Lauren, we should also make a shout out to the people who are new that we have a YouTube channel. So any old episodes you can go watch. And I think soon we'll be announcing a landing page that not only will consolidate all the old shows that you can watch, but it will also give you some previews of what's coming up in the next shows. I always try to do that during each show, at least give you a heads up on what's next week, but we'll have that even more organized. As we've said from the beginning, we came up with this idea, we flew with it, it took off flying, and we're still catching up slowly but surely.
Thank you, Lori. With that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And, oh, first, let me not scare you all with my screen.
I heard that little, I'm like, where's Lauren going? Oh no.
I was like, wait a minute, let me not scare everyone who's joined us today by all the tabs that I have open. So again, good morning to you all. My name is Lauren Simpson. I am with the Small Business Development Center, or the SBDC. The SBDC is a national program with over 1,000 locations across the country, offering no-cost services to local small businesses. And our services are at no cost because your tax dollars have already taken care of it. So you might as well get in contact with one of our centers so that we can help you along your business journey. For the Los Angeles network, which is the network that I represent, we have 8 locations, and you can see those represented here. Our locations are throughout the Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, and Ventura counties. And again, here's a deeper dive as to what it is that we do. We offer no-cost business advising, and so you're able to get connected with an incredible trainer or business expert, excuse me, like Lori Williams. We also have experts in taxes, finance, of course, marketing, anything that you might need along your entrepreneurial journey. We have resources for you, so get in contact with us. We also offer virtual trainings, much like the show you tuned into today. And so finally, contact us. We'd love to work with you for the Los Angeles area. You can reach us at 866-588-7232. If you'd like to reach out to us via online, smallbizla.org/new client. For those of you who tuned in outside of the Los Angeles area, please reach out to americassbdc.org/find your SBDC. And so really quickly, Lori, I wanted to mention the California Dream Fund.
Okay.
Again, as you can see on your screen, the Dream Fund is providing microgrants up to $10,000 to seed new small businesses. Again, these are new businesses. To find out information, you can go to smallbizla.org/Dream Fund. And I'll also include that link in the chat. Quick housekeeping. Sorry about that. Quick housekeeping. Any questions, please enter those into the chat. Again, questions into the chat. Questions into the Q&A, excuse me, as Lori will be monitoring the Q&A. The chat is going to be reserved for links and resources that Lori would like to share with you. So again, chat is going to be for resources and links that I will plug in there for you. And then the Q&A is where you'll put your questions. Anything I missed, Lori?
I don't think so, Lauren. I'm going to catch up on real quick a couple emails received. I just noticed in the chat because I was able to see it before clicking on. Barbara just commented about the email sent. And Barbara, it's interesting because Lauren and I were just discussing you 2 minutes
Sure.
before going live because I got the one email that I think you were talking about your real estate and asking a legal and a tax question. And I kind of mentioned it on the show that the question you had is very engaged in legalities as far as liabilities. And I wouldn't feel comfortable making a grand statement on that without you possibly getting a lawyer to look detailed into that. And the other one was changing on the tax forms. But I want to do a shout out to you, Barbara. When you send the second email, you didn't include the question. And so what I'm going to do is send Lauren your email address. I'd like to make a one-on-one and discuss it in more detail because the show really, I can't. So go ahead and do a shout out to Lauren. I'm going to get a scheduled appointment for you to go in more detail. Also, just in case, Sarah, I won't say last name, but Sarah, if you're listening, I sent you an email back. You had sent me an email about choosing a time to set up an appointment, but the email possibly did not include the times you chosen. So I got just an email saying, how about these dates, and no dates included. So a shout out to you, Sarah. Please send something back with some dates. I sent you an updated. If you didn't get it, get in contact with Lauren in case you didn't get my email. So that's just a quick little update that I wanted to throw in from some people that we haven't gotten back to. So you knew that. Okay, guys, got a couple things first here. So first of all, next week, we got our special Deborah Darris, our I think she calls herself the social media goddess. Did I remember that right, Lauren? Is it goddess?
It's goddess. I made the mistake of guru. It is not guru. It is definitely goddess.
I remember that, Lauren, because she was like corrected. No, it's goddess. So I'm trying to make sure I get that right. So our social media goddess is coming back. So what we're going to do starting next week, I got 3 weeks. And my goal is to really focus on how to get more customers, how to grow your company. That's my special intent. So we're going to kick off with Deborah. Deborah's going to talk about best practices on social media. I know last time we talked about in general social media, but I really want her home to say, well, these are the things that you should do. Then the week after and the week after that, we're going to have 2 different experts. They're also advisors at the SBDC, and they're going to get into discussing sales and marketing strategy specifically. So that's what's coming up as far as our upcoming show. Okay, guys, got some tips today. You know, I always try to throw in today's tips. That keeps you coming back. You never know what I'm going to tell you about. Well, I got a couple things here that you may or may not heard about. This is to all that have an EIDL loan, okay? The SBA just announced that there is an additional 6-month deferment that you will not have to make payments. Now, I know there's been deferment after deferment, and you're like, okay, well, where are we now? So there's the sentence for you in line 2 here. Loans now have a total deferment of 30 months from the date on the note. So look up your document, look at the date, 30 months from there, that's when you're going to make your first payment. Now, the key to know, interest will continue to accrue on the loans during the deferment, just so you're aware of that. And you may make a partial or a full payment during the deferment period, but you're not required to, but you can if you want. And the SBA does recommend you use pay.gov as a form of paying. Now, existing COVID EIDL borrowers can find account balances and payment due dates in the SBA Capital Access Financial System. That's in when you log in. Most of you are probably familiar with that by now. One other thing I want you to know is the deferments can result in balloon payments. Remember, you're deferring this and then you have interest accruing. You could end up having a balloon payment. And then after the deferment period ends, you will be required to make regular principal and interest payments beginning 30 days of the note. Now, that's a specific. What I'm trying to emphasize by this is just have an awareness. I'm not saying it's good or bad to use the deferment. I mean, it has to do with cash flow. And these loans are low interest, so it may may be, hey, I need the cash flow now, so I'm going to keep from making the payments until I absolutely have to. Nothing's wrong with that. It's just having an awareness, and that's all I am always trying to explain, is make sure you're aware. You know, to be quite frank, as the CFO for companies, a lot of times, and this happens commonly, especially in bigger companies, we borrowed money knowing, well, the interest is a certain amount, but we need the cash flow here, et cetera, et cetera. So when you borrow money, you know, when you're, I guess I want to say it this way, when you are looking at personal, and we think about taking out a loan, a lot of times we're like, oh, we're borrowing money. That's a bad thing. We should try not to do that, but we need to. When you're borrowing money from a company perspective, I'm not saying that you do it haphazardly without thought, but you do have a little different of a thinking process, okay? So what you do is you look at cash reserves. Sometimes it makes more sense to keep cash reserves and pay some interest on a loan, because you can't predict what's going to happen in business, especially now. So here's just another option. By the way, everything I'm about to say, as always, Lauren is putting it in the links in the chat. So you're going to get this information in the chat, so you have it. And in fact, the one on the idle deferment, I think that the one, actually, I know for sure, I only took a few key points on it. In the chat, it also gives customer service numbers and additional information. So guys, check in the chat, because what link she's putting in there is going to have more than I'm showing on the slide, okay? This next slide is for anyone doing your taxes that has questions about your unemployment compensation and exclusions on tax returns. The IRS has this fact sheet where they have an FNQ that you can look at it. And I don't know how many people may need this information, but some people may, so I wanted to include it. But it's a nice little write-up. Now that I am officially an enrolled agent, so that's pretty cool. I just got my documentation from the IRS. It's official. I'm certified as an enrolled agent, but I also get all this great correspondence, and that's where I try to say, share this with you whenever something comes through and it's on my radar that somebody might be affected by it and needs to know. Okay, this is just a simple slide, but it's also a shout out to Christopher. Christopher had a question about courier service and whether or not it was subject to sales tax, okay? So Christopher, I haven't had a chance to nail down on the courier service, but I at least wanted to speak to this. So what I wanted to explain to you guys is, we talked about sales tax a bit ago. This is just a little tidbit. I'm not even touching the iceberg, but I just wanted to explain that there are some situations where labor is taxable in California. I know most people think, okay, labor is never taxable, it's products that are taxable, but it's not true. And so what happens is, in sales tax, the California Tax and Fee Administration considers this thing called fabrication, okay? And they refer to fabrication labor, and it's taxable. And fabrication is considered to be work done in creating, producing, processing, or assembling a product, like if it has to be assembled. And if you modify a product at all, it can be also called part fabrication. Now, I first came upon this years ago. It's been probably a decade. I was a CFO for a company that had already gone through a sales tax audit. And what they did is they delivered furniture in big corporations, and they assembled the furniture. Think cubicles, right? And everybody, thinks of delivery and installation being a service that is not taxable. And I would have thought so too, to be honest with you. But what they did is they identified that just the assembly of the cubicles comes under this fabrication, because you were continuing the fabrication process on site during the assembly. So that had to be taxable. The delivery was not taxable, but the installation was. And the company had got hit with several fines and back taxes because they had not been charged sales tax on the installation. And because it was such a weird situation, every time we did work with a client, which were big companies, I had to go through, well, this is why, and they gave us this notice, and we have to add sales tax. That was my first understanding, which really alerted me to the fact that you can never assume you've got to check some of these items. You know, once again, being a consultant for a long time, you tend to hit all of these different things, and that's where your experience and expertise comes from, just years and years of knowledge. So what I then came upon is a situation with my own ebooks, because I sell my ebooks online, and then I wanted to make sure that my ebooks were not taxable, and I didn't think they were, but after that weird experience I became concerned. So I actually called them, and I found out that if somebody purchases my ebooks online, it does not have sales tax added to it. But if they purchase it to use as a handbook to take to my live seminars that I had at the time, it is taxable. So it showed me once again, there's all these really weird lines. And then, you know, speaking of designers, as we're going to an event, I had a client that did patterns, like digital patterns for dressmaking, and they consider that a digital product, and it's a service, so it's not taxable. Well, they decided to, with the digital product, mail one made dress to see how, you know, a sample to show how it should look. Well, then they decided that this was taxable, and they got hit with taxes based on the fact they were not charging tax on this sample dress. So my point of these stories, guys, is to say you never quite know, but if you click on this link, they've got tabs that they say, this is taxable, this is labor, this is not, and when in doubt, this is my lesson that I like to tell people, when in doubt, call. I have been very leery to make any statements on services unless it's blatantly obvious or I read it in print, because the situations I told you, the last three, I would have never guessed them, never. So I shout out to Christopher, check this website. You may want to even call them. Like I said, I haven't done the research on it, but I wanted you to know I was at least addressing your question. Okay. So with that, what I'd like to do now, hold on, let me click that. Okay. So today we have a really great show. Now, you know, last week Eric was on and shared a story which just became more interesting as he talked. I think everybody who saw that show last week know what I mean by that. Well, today we have another guest that is in a similar industry, Evette Preston. She's the founder and designer behind Preston and James. Now, for Evette, fashion was her career choice since grade school. You know, we all kind of wonder what we want to be. Evette knew at beginning grade school, she knew exactly what she wanted to be. And her clothing brand is produced with recycled or sustainable materials in small batches, locally, overseas, or by herself. Once a product sells out, she moves on to the next. So a very, very interesting story. She's going to bring us lots of information and details for us to learn from her great entrepreneurial experience that is continuing throughout today. Evette, I want to welcome you to Small Biz Talk. Welcome, Evette.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's good to see you again. I don't think I've seen you for a couple months, many months. I don't even
Many months. If
I recall, I got to, you know, identify that I'm getting older, right? So I can't keep track of my time at all.
We're not getting older.
I agree. You know, I am just gonna delusionally ignorant of my age. That's one of my famous things. I always call it delusionally ignorant. It's like a choice to just not acknowledge, and that's why I like that.
The seasons are changing, but we're not changing. We're
exactly.
just,
Okay, Evette, since grade school, you knew what you wanted to do. So tell me, how did you then begin in the industry, and how has your focus changed since your first introduction to the industry?
Well, basically in middle school, high school, all of my elective classes, anything that I can do was related to fashion. Like my mom sewed, she taught me how to sew. So I was making clothes, and I'm old. So we're old, but we're not old. But it was, you know, during that kind of TLC kind of stage in my high school where it's just, you know, upcycling and just making tons of stuff. And that's when they were like pinning things on their hats and painting on their jeans, and that kind of just everything there inspired me to just create more of my clothing. So from grade school, high school, I was creating things and then just decided to go to school for it, and went straight from high school into a trade fashion college. And from there, just haven't stopped. So
Wow, wonderful story. I have to just interject on something just hilarious, but you gave me a complete flashback of it. So I hate to sew, right? But my mother was big into sewing, and she was also into being very economical, right? And I grew very tall as a young kid, and she felt as though she needed to do something for my jeans that were getting too short, which you probably see different people, but different
yeah.
things on the bottom of the jeans, right? Which is fine enough. But like this led to emotional scars that I'm sure occurred in later life. Yvette, you're going to laugh at this. My mother decided to put curtain balls on the bottom of my jeans. Literally curtain balls. Fun? No, total embarrassment. So the minute you said in high school being creative, I remembered the curtain balls on the bottom of my jeans. I just had a horrific flashback.
We have done some crazy stuff though, just in the upcycling world, but it's what kind of makes us all unique though, is that we can, take recycled pieces or curtain balls and, turn them into fashion. I mean, you were probably the only one that had that style, and it's horrific for you now, but back then people were probably like, oh, she's innovative. Look at those jeans.
Yeah, I can't even remember the color of the curtain balls. I'm sure I blocked that out. Well, I speak a lot of times with entrepreneurs. They create something, they want to develop something, and there's such a huge leap between getting something in your mind, physically creating it, and then bringing it to market. It's bringing it to market that is such a challenge. And that encompasses everything from figuring out where to produce it to distributing it. I know I'm asking a huge question, so I'm just going to kind of leave it out there of that. I like to walk people through the process. How did you go from having an idea to getting where somebody was actually buying it?
It is a very broad question. Well, me being in the fashion industry for a really long time helped me with my career, just because I had so many contacts and I met so many contractors and sewers and just anyone, fabric people, because I've had so many different jobs in the field too. I mean, one of my first jobs after being a designer was I was an assistant fabric buyer. So I learned so many different types of fabric, how to touch them, know the hand, qualities, where to buy. So just having all those contacts from being in the industry so long kind of helped me get started, just because I was able to kind of reach out to all these different people and say, hey, I'm trying to start this. Do you think you can help me? Or, do you think you could find somebody to help me sew this? Or, even with overseas factories too. When I was in corporate sales, I had to work directly with the factories. So I, in turn, created all these different partnerships with factories to help me produce my clothing when I started. So my kind of situation is a little bit different, just because I was working in so many different areas of the industry to gain that knowledge. But I think for someone starting out, there's so many resources. There's so many companies too that help you kind of do startup, from the pattern making, from cut and sew to screen printing, where to resource all of those things. I could help people with that too, because I have so many contacts. But there's a lot of resources out there for someone that's starting up.
What's interesting about Eric was saying the same thing last week. He talked about how he had been in the industry, working for other companies, gained all the contact, gained all the understanding. If I even look at my own career, I started my business pretty early, but I still had been working for other companies and learned so much, even if it was what not to do. I learned from other companies. And it almost, it was a thought that came to me just as you were speaking. And I was thinking about the similarities in Eric's discussion as well as others. For newly, and I'm talking about just brand new entrepreneurs, when we're old, but not old, right?
Right.
I remember when I first started my company, it was a thought that you don't hear as much anymore is go ahead and work for somebody for just a little bit, get some experience, get some expertise under your belt. Today, I think the media, if I can just call it that for lack of a term, just the general culture tends to want to kind of push the young birds right from the nest. Okay, you just got out of college, jump in, you're an entrepreneur now. And we see that a lot through the SBDC. And I just wanted to take a moment and note this to our listeners, especially younger listeners that are perhaps thinking about starting a company. I think even though it may be feeling like a little bit of stolen years from your life, working for someone else and gaining insight while getting a paycheck and not losing capital is really got some advantage. So that steers a little bit from the question, but I just wanted to point that out because I thought that was such a little tidbit that we're hearing consistently from the guest is the experience they've had previously.
No, definitely 100%. I mean, I would never be able to do what I'm doing now if I didn't have all those different jobs, because every single job taught me a different part of the industry, and I met so many different people along the way that helped guide me to where I am now too. And if you just have an idea and go and try and pursue it and you fail, most people just give up after that.
Yeah.
But if you've had prior history and experience from, different parts of the industry and working with different categories or divisions, it helps you because you can say, okay, this part didn't work out, but, I kind of learned this from, working and doing this. So maybe if I try this, or maybe if I call this person, they can help me, or, it helps guide you more if you have that prior experience, even if it's not even working experience, even if it's just interning,
Yeah.
I mean, you learn so much. I mean, you can just be a sponge, and just see and witness and experience everything in that department that you're trying to do. So
And I just had a funny to myself. It's kind of like when you work for someone else, you got to get to a point where you go, well, if I was the boss, I'd do this. And then you get to start the company and find out, well, you're the boss and you're doing the same thing. And you
right.
start to understand
Right.
why. I remember, well, if I was the boss, I'd give everybody a raise. Well, no, you can't. You start to learn those things. Now, I've talked with different people that created something. It could be anywhere from a piece of clothing to even somebody that created some really cool eclectic bath towels. And then they struggle with this, where do I go for the first run? Because I don't have the capital, or do I have the sales to invest in this large quantity? So they kind of wander down into LA to see if they can have somebody produce something in LA, or they try to see how low of a quantity and how challenging it would be to produce overseas somewhere. And that seems to be if we break it down, the first question being the production. That's what I hear people asking on the calls and just kind of struggling with. So let's just talk about getting the first unit produced. What are some things people should understand and know as they're struggling with that stage of development?
Well, for the very first sample, I would suggest working with some of like the resources that I suggested. And there is forums. I could provide that stuff to you, not at the moment, but later if you need it, where you could find sample sewers, you could find cutters. There's plenty of people, especially in LA. Oh my God, it's fashion central. So I would start there with, working with a pattern maker if you don't have one, if you're trying to create something on your own. Getting a sample made. And then from there, there's so many resources, like I said, as far as people that can produce for you, small runs, help you source fabric, especially in LA. I mean, it's the best area to possibly produce any type of clothing just because there's so many resources out there. I would start there. If you're not trying to create something from scratch, there's a great resource of blanks, downtown, like you said, wandering around, and you can just go buy a couple blanks, work with some screen makers. A lot of the blank manufacturers actually do screening for you. So you can,
Definition on the blank manufacturer as you're talking about for anybody that
a
doesn't
blank
know what that means.
manufacturer, sorry, let me back up. So a blank is something that's, say, like a basic t-shirt or a basic hoodie or joggers, or they're called blanks when they're just solid goods. Sorry, the phone call coming in. They're called blanks when they're just solid goods. So nothing that's screened or anything like that. So downtown LA, Main Street is the main street where you could find most of the blank manufacturers. And if you just walk up and down, you'll just see rows and rows and rows of all these different people that you can go and buy, you know, one t-shirt if you want it. They have every color possible, long sleeve, short sleeve, baby tees, you know, men's unisex tees. I mean, there's just everything possible if you want it to do that route. And then, like I said, most of them actually do screening for you. You could pay a setup fee. You can give them their designs. If you don't have one, they can create one for you. So that route is where a lot of people do start, just because the resources are there. You know, you just go and you pay. Starting from scratch, your own design is a little bit more tricky. And like I said, I do have resources that I could provide to you if you would like later, and you could share that with your audience. But I don't know if I answered the question or not.
You
but
did actually, because I'm not that, you know, I'm familiar from a big picture with the fashion industry, never been engaged in it on the details. So it's very interesting. So I have this idea, then I turn around and I either have it created from my own pattern, or I go to a blank manufacturer, get them to screen print it. And now I have a sample. Am I correct on that? I have a sample. Okay. So now that I have the sample, where do I go from there? What do I do then?
Well, from there, it's basically, where do you want to sell? You either,
Everybody answers anywhere they can make money.
right, anywhere that you can make money. But most people, it's hard to basically just say, I'm going to produce 100 pieces and not know who's going to buy them. So what a lot of people do is, if you do have a little website, you can post it on your website, and you know, from there, say pre-order, you know, or limited quantity, or new, you know, new collection or whatever. And then from there, take your orders. You know, there's always a shipping time. Say there's 2 weeks to produce, you know, and then from there, then you can go and buy all the sizes that you need, have your screen printer print exactly what you need. So then you don't have to worry about extra inventory, needing extra capital to produce all these things, because you're only producing what you actually got orders on. So that's one way. Or you can, you know, same thing, produce like 24 pieces, take them to, you know, there's so many pop-ups. I mean, there's so many pop-ups, you know, you can go and do a flea market, or, I mean, there's so many great ones out there, Renegade and Unique LA. I mean, there's so many that you can go and sell your product at too. Or, you can do like flash sales on Instagram too. I mean, there's just so many resources to sell the product after you make it. For me, just because it is scary to have so much inventory, I like to do the smaller quantity. And then what a lot of people are doing now too is just having that one sample, getting a really cute fashion shoot or photo shoot done. And then from there, say pre-order, you know, this is all the styles. This is what I have. You know, the pre-order is going to be going on for a week. After that, then we're going to produce, and, you know, we'll ship everything to you in 3 weeks, you know, and a lot of people are actually responding to that because they want that one of a kind piece, and they're willing to wait for it. And they know, okay, this is being handcrafted, you know, for me.
This is interesting. Yeah. So this is a different method, like I said, and that's why I was really excited to have you here. That is different than Eric, who is doing these large productions of orders for big retail stores. So what I'm learning from this is, if I had the desire to get in the fashion, I have to have some money to invest. I'm not actually acting like I have none, but I don't have to have this huge block of money where I'm buying all of this inventory and I'm storing all this inventory in hopes that somebody buys. I can actually kind of move a little ahead, get a pattern, move a little ahead, get a sample. Then I can move a little ahead with some marketing. I could make a sale. Then I could move a little. So I could kind of tiptoe and get my toe in the water little by little. Now, the question I have is, all this makes sense from a cash flow finance perspective. How does that pencil out financially to make it warranted? Because this is where I'm going, Yvette. I don't know if this is a true statement or not, but you always hear, until you buy a certain quantity, you don't have enough margins to make it really profitable. How do these one smalls, or is it, since it's fashion, it gets a higher price? Can you walk me through financially what you have to be concerned about and how it pencils out?
Yes. So for that more cut and sew product, like I said, if you do the pre-sale, you're getting that money up front anyway. So you're using that money to produce your inventory for the orders. So that kind of covers that. And then, yes, the smaller it is, the more you're going to pay. But like I said, if you have that customer base and your stuff is unique and different, they're going to pay for your items. Especially if your story behind it presents well, and they feel you, they understand what you're trying to achieve, they'll support you, especially if they know that, okay, she's only doing a pre-sale for a week, and she's only producing whatever it is. And after that, she's moving on to a new style. I need to get this, so there is margin there because it's built in the story of the style too. As far as the blank stuff, it is tricky, and it will be more expensive to produce smaller. But it also will help you kind of understand your market if you're not familiar with it, and to see what styles sell and what styles don't sell. So you don't have to worry about that huge inventory, and having that capital. And then from there, if say you have 6 styles and 3 out of the 6 are your best sellers, then from there, then you can go and invest and, put it on your credit card if you need to, but you can go and invest and produce larger quantity, because these 3 styles sold amazingly. These other 3, not so much. So maybe if I still want to continue them, I'll do smaller quantity, but I know from experience, these are my best sellers. I'm going to get crazy with these, go mass if you need to. And then from there, then you can get a little bit more of a margin, because you are working with a larger quantity. Not all large quantity, though, is a huge savings, especially with overseas, because I do big quantity as well. On another part of my line, that right now, especially with transportation fees, importing anything right now is just not feasible. The cost of cotton has risen like $3. So, honestly, it's not the best time to actually produce something mass overseas, unless you are buying from like a blank manufacturer that's producing 500,000 pieces at a time. They're buying things at $1, and if you're buying from them, you can get a great price. But if you're trying to produce on your own through someone, it's actually not a savings right now.
It sounds like, with the small, unique custom, you've got some profit, and then the huge over here, but it's in the middle part that's really tricky with the price. Something you said earlier, and I would like to go back and focus on it, is you spoke about it. You said it 2 different ways. You spoke about the story, and it tells the story. And what it reminded me of is the example I always use, be it right or not, because it probably is incorrect, but I would talk about a Coach purse. purse, just as a typical example in teaching in undergrad school, right? About how sometimes products can have a higher selling price point because of the marketing and the branding behind it versus other products. I used a Coach purse. But what I'm hearing is that really the marketing is a key part, how you describe these products in the story. And I know that when you said the story, it was 2 words, but that was packed with a lot of information on how you go about the story and what that means. Can you unpack the story for us and tell us about it?
Well, I mean, everybody has their own the story, but
Yes.
I mean, mine, for instance, is just wanting something that's different and unique that wasn't out there. And that's kind of why I started the brand, just because we grew up on vintage. I'm one of 10 sisters. So, so all girls. And it just, we never really had anything new. So for us, it was just all about reinventing what we were able to find, thrifting. And that's carried true for my whole life. So with me going to find fun pieces in the store, I just couldn't find them. So when I did decide to start this brand, I was like, I want to do something, that kind of rings true to me. And, there's always someone that's like, oh my God, I love what you have on. Where'd you get that? And I'm always like, I made it, So I kind of wanted to just bring what I could do. And since I had that background, to life, and even if it's one-on-one, because I do 20% of my brand is one of a kind pieces. And that's another thing that I will never stop doing, because I want people to have those individual special pieces that they know are just theirs, and that's why I continue to do the small batch on purpose, not because I have to, because I want, things to be small, people to know that there's only 25 pieces made, and they are part of a unique, special little group that has this, style. So that's kind of my story and where I started, and where the brand is, and where I continue to kind of evolve it along the way. But everybody has a different story with what they're starting, why the colors that they're choosing, the styles that they, want to pursue, because everybody is passionate about something, and, it's all within their feelings. So it's kind of hard to describe other people's story. I mean, I can only speak on mine. And like I said, mine just started from wanting to have individual pieces and wanting people to be individual.
Yeah, how do you communicate that to and what do you think the customers are drawn to? And what, like, when I'm assuming you do your own marketing, you write a lot of your own copy, or I just had this belief, I could be wrong on this, but when
No,
you sit
everything's
down,
me.
that's what I thought it was, and your marketing is real strong. And I just, a lot of people struggle with marketing and writing copy and getting people to engage in their story. It doesn't matter whether it's fashion, a service, or a product. If you think about it, you got to get customers to engage in your story, to want to give up their money to buy your product or service. Any advice you can give our audiences when you sit down to market? What do you think about when you start describing, or I don't want to put words in your mouth, when you try to convey your story from now, put on your marketing hat and be a marketing teacher? What do you think about?
I would say the best thing, or the best advice that I can give, is just hold true to why you started, why you wanted to create your business. Because even me, like, I wavered so many times, because it's really hard. Social media kind of persuades you to think, I should be doing this, or I should be doing that, because, okay, this person's doing this and they have X amount of followers, or this person is doing, it has influencers, and they're, building their brand and selling that way. And, I would just say, just do you, why you started this, you believe in your brand the most, and no one's going to be able to sell it more than you. So if you hold true to why you started, what you believe in, people are going to understand that. People will see it and embrace you and support you, you know. And I mean, I've tried so many different things, and you know, I got lost along the way too, because I thought for a while like I needed to follow like what other people were doing, or post how they were posting, or change my colors, or do this or do that because it would help build the brand. But I learned I lost myself in that process, you know, and then I started to kind of not know what I was doing in the brand and where I was going, and producing things that didn't feel true to me. And now it's just like, I can't, you know, the only way that this brand is going to succeed is if I continue to believe in myself and continue to say, this is the way it has to be. You know, I know other people were telling me that I need to do this, but this is the way that it has to be. And love me or like me, hate me or whatever, you know, but this is me, you know. And I think people, once you do kind of understand yourself and, like I said, hold true to your brand, people will support you.
You know, you're not the the first guest who has come on and talked about social media, and how I like how you express it, got lost. I like the word got lost, but they started getting entangled in following what they perceived was other people's success. And so, like you said, they would try to change things. And I've run into many clients that have tried to change so much compared to every time they woke up and they said, oh, I think somebody's doing this to succeed. And I think that is a valuable nugget of information to the audience. And I can tell you from my own history that I used to have this practice for, like, say I wanted to update my website because I was offering some new finance products. Instead of just sitting down with a blank sheet of paper and saying, what do you want to offer? How do you want to describe this? What do you want it to look like? I would automatically Google to see what somebody else is doing, and then get all caught up emotionally in how they're producing it. And that is such a common theme, that whenever anybody sets down to market themselves or describe themselves, they immediately Google competitors because they've been told, check out the competitors, right? But I think in that, what can happen is not only do you lose yourself, which is a very bad thing to do, because if you lose yourself, you're not going to be successful. You can't keep the course. But I think also you lose the opportunity to have structure and consistency and direction in your marketing, in your communication. And one of the things that I was a proponent from day one, I didn't care if you were talking about being a company owner, communicating to the staff, communicating to the vendors, your marketing message, you have to be consistent. And I think when we run into situations where people are just kind of floundering, trying to follow everybody else's guidance, they end up losing what they want to do. So I think those are really great words. Lauren, throw in there whatever you can capture, but be you, keep your direction, keep the course, have consistent communication, consistent marketing, and don't get caught up with what you think the latest success story is and feel that you have to emulate it. That's really what I'm saying, is don't get caught up in the latest success story and run to emulate it, because that could be, first of all, fictitious. I've seen so many times where people, it's perceived they're successful. It's hilarious because I've had the opportunity of having, you know, these companies, they're supposed to be really up and very successful. And then I've just had this opportunity that I get to look at their financials for financial or tax. And I'm like, they don't have any money. They're not really successful. So you don't even know what's behind the scenes. Would you say that's a good message of that?
Yes, totally. And I mean, for the social media part too, there is some good, I mean, obviously there is good marketing out there. It's just, I would do your research. I wouldn't listen to anything and everything that everybody tells you. I mean, I've tried everything. I mean, email is the best form of marketing. It really is. I'm terrible because I hate to send emails, but it is the best form. But there's so many people that are going to try and sell you, because everyone is in the business to make money. So just knowing that, do your research. You know, don't just listen to the first story that somebody tells you and then give them your money. You know, like, make sure that it rings true to what you're trying to accomplish too before you decide to do it. Because like I said, I've tried so many different social media things because I kept being told, oh, you have to have a big following for people to, take you seriously. But I'm not a number, and my brand isn't a number. And I don't exist based off of how many followers I have. I exist because I have passion for what I'm doing, and people see that and people love what I'm creating. That's why I exist.
Very good. Very
So
good. Yeah.
I
Go ahead.
just, I don't know. I'm just saying, like, I mean, once you kind of like learn that, I think you'll be fine. Sorry, I got a little passionate on you, but
No,
I just,
it's so true. And I see too many times people get caught up in likes, and I always would scream at people, likes doesn't buy a quart of milk. I always talk finance. Can you buy a quart of milk with that? A like does not buy a quart of milk. And there is I'm not a social media expert. I just know what people spend on social media financially, and when their sales aren't increasing and they're not seeing the bottom line. That's where my experience comes from. And I just haven't seen that there's a definite, I'm not saying there's never a correlation, keyword definite, but a definite correlation between people liking something and purchasing. That doesn't mean that it's going to happen. So I think those are really good keys on social media. Now we're going to go backwards a little bit. So we talked about the production. I'm going to go back in time. When you first started selling your products, was it on the website? I believe you also had a retail store. So let's talk about your experiences of that. Where did you go to sell your products at the beginning? And then walk us all the way up to now, all the different places your products are being sold.
Well, I first started with pop-ups. So
define a pop-up in case anybody's not familiar with them, because that's a term that came out, I don't remember how long ago, but it's not been around forever.
It has not been around forever. Pop-up is like a mini little flea market, but not flea. I mean, it's I guess most of them call themselves curated events now, but it's vendors just going and setting up their items for the day or the weekend. Most of them are hosted by companies, like I mentioned earlier, like a Renegade or Unique LA or something like that. And they do most of the social media and promotion to get people to come to those events. They're all, most of them are juried. You do have to pay, they're not free. But there is lots of benefits to them. Like I said, because they do promote the heck out of them, because they need the people to come and shop so they can continue to have people to pay them to be part of their events. So I started doing those because I started the brand in 2017 and May actually of 2017. And pretty much after that, in July is when I first launched the website. And then from there, I was doing pop-ups pretty much every weekend, just because I had to. That was my source of income. And just from there, I learned which ones were good, which ones were bad. There's a lot of bad. And then, just where my product sold the best, what areas, because people would say, oh, go to, PV or, Redondo has the best, people pay over there, they have money and all this other stuff. So you kind of like go where people guide you without having that background and experience and not knowing really where your brand's going to sell the best. You just have to try, and fail plenty of times. But then after that, you learn which ones are the good ones, where, your product sells, who responds better to it. But I just started doing those, and then still selling on the website, not as much on the website. The pop-ups is where I did my most revenue, just because I was engaging. I'm in front of people. They can actually talk to me. They can see my process. Because I was hand painting a lot of my stuff too. So, it's kind of hard to relay that, online, even though there's verbiage there to support that. It's easier to kind of do that in person because people can actually see you. And I was actually painting live too, which helped people walk by and see me and say, oh, what is she doing? And, so that kind of helped engage my following too. but just started doing those. And I still do pop-ups this year. I did pop-ups, like I said, from 2017 up until last year.
I've heard
This
really
year,
good things about pop-ups with people having good experience. Because a lot of times with my clients that they come to me with the SBDC, they're just new into the market, and I have heard a lot of people successfully make money, but also be able to test the market, understand different things about their product, and then get people to do repeat buys who got exposure to their products at a pop-up. Now, you mentioned that there's some good and some bad.
there's
Is there like a question I can ask? Like, could I say, oh, I want to go to a pop-up. Let me ask 3 things or 2 things so I can inspect whether it's potential. Now, you don't know until you try, but is there anything somebody can be conscious or aware of to identify, would this pop-up work? And I believe pop-ups are for not just fashion, for other purchases of products
for
as well, correct?
everything.
Yep.
People sell everything you could possibly imagine. I mean, anybody that makes something can sell at a pop-up. I mean, there's so many out there too. I mean, Jackalope is another good one. And it's 2 beautiful women that run that one. I love them to death. And they're not that expensive, because there's Renegade is very expensive, but they're one of the best ones out there. And it's very hard to get into that one, but you will make money. And then also West
We
Coast
had a
Craft.
question on, I don't know if you'll be able to give us an approximate. We just got a question. What is the approximate cost for a 1-day pop-up? Can you give us a range so these guys have an idea of if it's even feasible for them?
It really depends on the type of show, to be honest, because they vary vastly. Like a flea market or a farmer's market, you're probably going to be around 100 to 150 per day.
Okay.
And like Jackalope, for instance, I believe they're $300 for the weekend. Renegade, depending, because Renegade is they do, I don't know, like 15 different states. So you can kind of do their tour if you wanted to, but I mean, they're not cheap. They're like $700, $800 for the weekend.
Okay.
But you can share too. I mean, that's for a full booth, a 10 by 10.
Okay.
But most of them have shared, like Jackalope, you can share with somebody too. And most of the time it's a split fee. So it's like, if it's 700, it's 350 to share. So, I mean, it really depends on what your product is, where you want to sell it. Renegade may not be for everyone, because it is a little bit more of an upper scale kind of market that goes to that show. And like I said, it's very curated and it's juried and they don't accept everybody. But there's so many out there. I mean, so many people are basically doing like little pop-ups and little things every single weekend. I mean, LA alone, you could look on the calendar and see 20 different people doing a show in the same weekend. So that also makes it hard too, because with so many shows going on, where do the customers go? Are they shopping at the other one while you're at the different one?
Oh, yeah.
Too. So it does make it tricky, because sometimes it's like, even with Renegade, and I've been doing Renegade for 4 years now, there'd be weekends where you're just like, oh my God, last year I did this show and I made such a good amount, blah, blah, blah. And then this new year you're doing it and there's another show going on that same weekend and you do terrible, but you're going off of your past history, but there's also 5 other shows going on that other people are like, oh yeah, no, I went to the other one instead. So it's like, it's not, there's nothing promised at those, but it's also, you get your product out there, it's taking a risk. It's a big risk,
It still is what I'm learning that has really been fascinating is if I wanted to get into something, I could actually do this sample, do this small run, make this customization, go to a pop-up. Yes, it's expensive for a day, but it's not outrageous. It's not impossible. Now, when I go to the pop-up, I'm assuming that I have a ability to charge credit cards on my phone. Am I bringing my own system? I'm assuming just like a hairdresser would. That's how I work about it. So really, all the cost is feasible for someone who's got got a great idea, a design, and wants to go somewhere, they don't have to get a bunch of inventory and have a retail store. They can experience this to the degree it takes them. They could do pop-ups forever. They can do a hobby on the
Right.
side. It could become a full company. I guess for me, not having ever experienced, the different ways of just starting in the industry, it's more feasible to get into than I thought. And that
Yeah.
makes it real exciting. Now, from the pop-ups, you're kind of venturing now into a bigger world, aren't you? So
Yes.
tell us, where are you
Yes.
going now with the remaining time we got? Tell us about what's the future for Evette? What's the future for you and your brands? Tell us the exciting things on the horizon.
So, well, 2019 is when I decided to do a little bit more quantity than I normally do for the boutique brand, and decided to pursue wholesale for the smaller part, because I've always done wholesale for the bigger part of the brand, which I actually am cutting back on just because it's not profitable, and we can go into that another time. Just mass, like I mentioned earlier, is just importing is not profitable right now at all. But I decided to do wholesale, and my crazy self launched it in the beginning of 2020 during the pandemic. So I had this
Perfect timing.
I know, perfect timing. I mean, who knew, right? I mean, I had all these cute styles and had produced all this stuff, and it was a huge, huge thing for me. I mean, maxed out every credit card I possibly had. But it was exciting for me because I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm starting something new. I'm gonna like be in all these little boutiques, and all these people are gonna love me. And then it was like pandemic. So it was like wah, wah, wah. But I still kind of made it through, and I did get into some stores, and last year was really good. I am in 20 stores now, which is pretty amazing.
Congratulations. Yes.
Thank you. So it was just like continuing to make that line, produce everything in small batches. So it's not anything crazy that I have to worry about. Financially, it's still expensive, but it's not to the point where I'm like stressed, where I'm like, okay, I can only eat potatoes today because I can't, like there's no way I'm going to be able to pay my bills if I buy groceries, so it was just, it got me to the point where I was like, okay, I can actually do this, and people like the brand, which made me feel good too. Cause I was like, okay, I can continue to do my like quirky stuff because people are responding to it. And then I just made more and more small batch pieces. And so that's kind of where the brand is. And I'm hoping to continue the wholesale part and do eventually some more trade shows, promoting the brand, getting into more stores, because that is a very feasible and profitable business, selling wholesale. And then also I'm opening a store. So that's my new thing. I know, I'm so excited. So I'm in Denver at the moment. I decided to open a store here instead of California just because it's so hard in California right now. My gosh, it's so expensive. But I found a location. I'm so excited. I'm hoping it will be open by April 15th. We were trying to do it by
your eyes. Look at the twinkle. We're looking at the entrepreneur twinkle in the eye. You know what?
I'm so happy.
I'm so happy. You'll have, okay, you're going to have to come back when you get your store open.
Yes.
And Lauren, I'm going to do a shout out for you a minute. Can you bring up, before we finish, can we bring up Yvette's website? We want to take a look at these fashions for anybody who hasn't seen it.
Oh my gosh, it's so old too. So sorry.
That's
I apologize.
okay. We just want to, Lauren's going to get
updated my new
Lauren's
stuff.
going to get that for, we can't end the show without anybody seeing your cool fashions because they are so unique. But you know what I love? Thank you so much, Yvette. What I love about your story is we now have gone from how you started in this micro process where people look at, isn't that cool, guys? Isn't that awesome? So we got to learn about how you started in these small samples and the pop-ups. And it's a story that, I don't know, audience, you can tell Lauren in the chat, everybody out there, but you can relate to. We can see how you piecemealed each of these different activities together, and you've continued and been persistent. And now here you are up in Denver opening your first retail store. And I just can't thank you enough. And look at, I looked at your website. I wanted people to see it. This is really, really cool stuff, guys. Really cool stuff. So as a last statement, any one last statement you want to do a shout out to our audience to tell them to get them inspired to that they can do it?
I mean, don't give up on yourself. I mean, believe in what you're doing. And like I said, just hold true to yourself. And I mean, that's the best advice that I can give. Because I mean, if you have the passion, you're going to do it. It's definitely not easy. It's not for the lighthearted, for sure. But if you really believe in yourself, just keep going. There's going to be some really hard days, and then there's going to be some amazing days, and you'll make it happen. So that's the best advice I can give, is just keep going, even when you really want to give up, because there's going to be a lot of those days. Just keep going.
I loved it, Yvette. I loved it. Lauren, wasn't that awesome? Don't you feel like you totally can understand the whole process? And another great interview from a real person doing real things that we can all look up to. Thank you so much, Yvette, for sharing.
You are welcome. And then I guess let me know if you guys have any questions for the other pop-up and all that stuff. I don't mind sharing. I mean, I walked through enough mud to understand and see what's good and what's bad. So I don't mind, sharing and giving advice as far as the pop-ups, which ones are good and bad, and resources and all that stuff.
Perfect. Absolutely. And you've been answering some of the guest questions, some of the audience questions as we've been speaking. I've been coming in. Yeah. So unbeknown to you, you have answered, but definitely if anybody needs additional resources, reach out. That, like all our other guests, are so open and kind to share their information with us. And I just love the story. I mean, I learned a lot, and I know that if I'm still young, if I ever get a creative idea in my mind, I now know the process to bring it to market and sell it and what I would go through. Lauren, at you.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Yvette. What an incredible story. Super insightful. I'm seeing the chat going crazy. Everyone is saying congratulations, and many congratulations to you and your new store. That's awesome. And everyone is just truly thankful. And then I did see a few who are just like, oh, yep, she's right. Yep, that's a good one.
Yeah,
good.
It's going crazy here as always. And yeah, a lot of congratulations to you, which is wonderful.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's been a long time coming, and I'm happy to be where I am. I mean, it's not without struggle. I mean, there's still struggle. It's construction still going on, but it's good, and I'm just taking it day by day and taking each blessing as I can, and if it doesn't work out, I tried, I just have to be positive and look at it that way and just say, I'm pursuing this dream that I have, that I'm so passionate about. And if I don't, I'll have big regrets, so it's I have to just continue to feed this burning desire that I have, because this brand feeds me, spiritually, creatively, just financially right now, and it's if I didn't have it, I don't know what else I would do. So it's I have to just pursue it, and I know most of your followers and listeners probably have that within them with whatever they're trying to pursue. So it's just do it, I mean, what do you got to lose? Money.
It's so true. It's so true. A long time ago, I bet you I was in my 20s. I was so concerned about whether I was going to succeed in I always wanted to be a business consultant. My whole life has been consulting, right? So I decided to rewrite, I'll end on this note. I decided to rewrite the word success and failure, because I was always worried about being success, right? So I determined it was going to be very simple to me. To succeed was just to try, and to fail was not to try. And that was going to be my total term. If I didn't even care if I achieved what I didn't try to achieve. If I achieved anything, I succeeded because I tried, and it was just to try. And that was definitely my approach to it. Well, Lauren, before we close the show, I just want to do a shout out to anybody who still has a question I haven't answered. Like I said, Barbara, get in touch with me. It's in my, heart. You guys know me enough to make sure I get within everybody's question. But I have to say, sometimes I get a lot of emails. You guys can only imagine. And sometimes I can miss them. Absolutely. Lauren's on top of it, but I can go through days where I get so many emails in one, I could put one aside and miss it. So if I didn't get to your question or didn't get to your scheduling an appointment with me, shout back out. I don't mean to miss anybody, but as the show's gotten more popular, I've gotten more communication, which is awesome, but I also get a little bit more behind on getting back to everybody. But Lauren's the person, so if you ever don't hear from somebody, no, Lauren got you to me. It's probably on my end. So Lauren, we had another great show. Yvette, thank you so much. Anything else we need to touch base on before we end today's show?
I just wanted to let everyone know I put in my email into the chat one last time. It's lsimpson@lbcc.edu. So again, if you'd like to get in contact with Lori with any follow-up questions, if you want to just reach out to us and share any insight and or questions or anything that you might need, just reach out to us. Again, lsimpson@lbcc.edu. Many thanks again to you, Yvette. What an incredible story. Just incredibly authentic, and just so many things that you said. I'm not a designer. I would love to think that I am when I piece things together, but even though I'm in a different industry, so many of the things that you mentioned today and the tidbits and just, little nuggets of information just truly resonated. So from all of the audience and everyone who tuned in, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
And we'll all see you
Thank
next
you for
week.
having me.
Oh, you're welcome. And everybody, will see you next week when we start our social media marketing and sales strategies. 3 weeks, intense focus, get the customers, grow the business. That's what we're going to focus on. Then I got some great surprises after that I'll be telling you about. So thank you again, Yvette. Thank you so much for being there. Lauren, I will see you next week. And to everybody out there, thank you so much for tuning in to us.
Thank you. And I'll be hanging back just a little bit, Lori, in case anyone wants to snag my email or any information from the chat. So You ladies have an amazing day. Thank you again.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
And for all of you who are still there, I'm going to reshare Yvette's information so you can get in contact and check out her brand there, as well as her social media. I am going to include, again, my email address, just so that everything is further down in the chat. You don't have to just scroll. And then let me include a link to our YouTube channel, so that you guys can see our previous recordings. And finally, I am going to, I saw a question related to becoming a client. So I'm going to include that link now. And then one last link will be the submission form that we built out. And for that form, you can submit questions, suggestions for show topics, as well as whether or not you want to be a guest. There's that link there. And to all of you, thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Have a great week. Bye.